Hi, I'm Michael Holmes interviewing Marcia Robson, and today is the 12th of June 2013, and we're conducting the interview in Marcia's home on West Main Street. And Marcia, have you lived in town all your life, and how many years would that be? You don't have to give us your exact age, but about.
Yeah, I've lived in Hopkinton for 84 years.
Oh my.
Yes.
And your maiden name?
Russell, Marcia Russell.
Uh-huh. And maybe you could just describe your family growing up and brothers and sisters and your family life from years ago.
Yeah.
And what street you lived on too.
Okay. We lived on Cedar Street, and I lived there for about 5 to 6 years, and then we moved to Grove Street, and then we moved back to Cedar Street, and then we moved up the Pleasant Street Extension, and then back to Cedar Street. So I lived on Cedar Street 3 times.
In the same house or different houses?
No, different houses. Yeah. The last house that we lived in is where across from the post office. It's I think they're offices buildings right now. It's an office.
Oh, that's
house.
a pretty house. Yeah, pretty old
That's where
house.
I got married from.
Uh-huh.
And we lived in that where the parking lot is at Katz's. There was a big white house there. We lived there.
This is after your marriage? Or?
No, before.
Uh-huh.
Before I married. And then when I was a baby, I lived across the street from that white house where where the post office is, right through there. There was a house in there.
Uh-huh.
And that's where...
And so were all these houses old houses? They'd been built a long time ago?
Yes, they were all old. They were owned by the Phipps family in Hopkinton.
And what did your dad do for work?
My father worked at the thread mill, Seaman and Cobb.
And where was that?
Seaman and Cobb on Hayden Rose Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a thread mill.
And did it employ a lot of people? I don't know about the thread mill.
The thread mill, there was probably maybe 100 people. There wasn't too many people.
Mm-hmm.
There was another floor on top of that building where he worked, but they took that floor off.
Oh, I know what
as
you
it
mean.
stands now. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that up by Dr. Wright's house?
Yes, right next
Okay,
door.
right next door.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your father's job? What did he do?
He worked up in we used to call it the sweatshop. It was where they did the thread. I don't know what they did to it, but he worked up on the top floor.
Uh-huh.
That's no longer there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you have any jobs as a young kid? Or?
Yes, I worked there too.
Uh-huh.
When I was a teenager for a while. Up in the winding room where we wound the yarn onto the spools.
And who was it sold to, the yarn? Do you know where it went?
Seaman and Club, I don't know where they sold it. Probably down south, because that's where they moved. They moved down south, the business.
Uh-huh. Well, that's an interesting sidelight I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And, remind me of your maiden name again.
Russell.
Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And had your folks been in town a long time themselves, the Russells?
My mother was from Marlborough, and my father was from Everett. And they moved to Hopkinton when I was born, because he went to work at the thread mill.
Okay, so they came here for work.
Yeah.
Do you think that most people, like of your father's era, would have worked in town, or did they work at other places outside of town?
A lot of them worked outside of town, in Ashland and Medway and Milford and around.
Uh-huh. Anything specific come to mind as to what your parents' generation would have done, your dad's working generation, like where they worked, or?
My mother's father was a fire chief in Marlborough years ago.
Ah.
And I'm not sure what my father's parents did.
Uh-huh. And your mom was a stay-at-home mom?
Yes,
And-
she stayed at home.
And how many brothers and
I
sisters?
have one brother, Chester.
Uh-huh. Still living?
Yes, he lives out in Idaho.
Oh. And well, tell me a little bit about when you were a youngster, what you liked to do best.
Oh, I was on roller skates all the time. I can remember falling down and getting all kinds of bruises. I used to love to roller skate up all the time. And I took up dancing and acrobatics for years.
Really?
Yeah. I took my lessons in Hudson, Mass.
Uh-huh. For both dancing and acrobatics?
Yes, yep, she taught both.
That was a little unusual for the time, or not?
No, most children, a lot of children did. And they used to have minstrel shows in Hopkinton, and I used to be in the minstrel shows.
And where were those held?
Those were held at the town hall. They had a stage there, which is no longer there anymore, but they had a stage where you could put on shows and stuff.
And what age group of the kids would put on these shows?
I don't know. It was put on by, I don't know who put it on, but there was all kinds of talent. There was men singers and lady singers and other dancers and
Uh-huh. But it was children doing it, the school-age children?
a lot of children. And there were some adults that told jokes probably. I don't remember. I was so little, but
Yeah. Did you do it during the school day, or was it like a paid performance in the evening?
it was an evening thing, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Huh. So all the proud parents came and townspeople came.
Yeah, they would fill the hall and we'd perform. It was called like a minstrel show.
Uh-huh.
The men would put on colored faces, paint their faces.
Oh, really? Minstrel show?
Yeah, real.
Yeah, from old times.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of Hopkinton men that I can remember singing. I don't remember the songs they sang, but I remember them, singing on stage.
Did Hopkinton have like a town band or any kind of groups like that?
Just in the schools. That's the only ones I remember.
No fire department band, volunteer fire department.
Not
I guess
that
we'd know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember that, no.
And who were your best friends as a little kid?
Little kid? Oh my goodness, I had a lot of friends. I used to turn around with the band cross that lived on Walcott Street.
And
Barbara Belker that lived down Hayden Row. And there was a Grace Johnson that lived on Hayden Row. And some Woodville children like Marilyn Farah, Florence Rice. A lot of them aren't here anymore that I know of.
And do you still see the ones that are here?
No, a lot of them have passed away. I
Yeah.
don't see them anymore, no.
But the ones still living, have they moved away, or are they still anybody still in town that you were
No.
a child with?
No, they're
They're all
all
gone.
gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, so did you go to center school, or did
I
you
went
go
to
to
center school.
Yeah.
They used to have like the 6th grade. I think I went to the 6th grade. And then you go up to the high school up here, on top of the hill here, from 7th and 8th grade, and then the high school was up there too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty building. Did you like the building?
It was all right.
Yeah, you didn't notice the building at that
No,
age, probably
no,
not.
no.
And you all walked to school? Were there school
Yes,
buses?
yes, I always walked. There was school buses for people that lived way down Hayden Row
Yeah.
and Woodville and
Uh-huh.
Bear Hill.
Right. And what church did you go to? Were you church going?
Congregational
Uh-huh.
church, yeah. I sang in the choir.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And was that a very active church? Did they do things?
Yeah, they used to have go on picnics through the summer. They'd have a picnic. You'd go over to, it was Lake Chauncey in Westboro. We'd go to Lake Chauncey and have a picnic.
And what about the 4th of July celebrations, or back then?
Back then they had bonfire up where the high school is now.
Uh-huh.
They'd have a big bonfire the night before.
Oh.
4th of July.
Uh-huh.
Huge. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, and they'd have a few concessions, you know, you could buy tonic or
Yeah.
apples and stuff like that, yeah.
And what about parades? Did they have parades?
Um,
Or did
I
they
don't
start
know.
the Horribles parade that way back then?
no, that was later in my life that I remember they started that.
Mm-hmm.
McIntyre's started that.
Mm. I don't remember or don't know what year it would have started. Do you think what decade would they have started
I couldn't
it?
tell you. My friend, we chum around together. Beverly McIntyre and I chum around together, but she would know more about that than
Uh-huh,
I do.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, she might be on our list
Yeah.
as a prime candidate, I guess. And do you remember how many kids about were in your high school graduating class? Or
Oh, well, it was probably 22 or something like that.
Yep. And do you ever did they have reunions?
Yes, yeah, they
did-
had reunions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy was in the same class of 47.
Oh, the class of 47.
Mhm.
Well, in some ways that doesn't sound all that long ago. I guess it
No,
is.
No.
So were you boyfriend and girlfriend in high school?
No, they used to have at the Congregational Church on Saturday nights teen canteen, a dance.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
Yeah, and that's where I met him,
Uh-huh.
met Roy.
And were you young when you married?
Yeah, 16 and 17.
Oh, that's very young.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Maybe it's
Yeah.
not young for those days. I
Not
don't
for
know.
those days, no.
Uh-huh.
And then we got married in 48.
Uh-huh. And so you had jobs as a teenager then and as a
I
young
used to work
wife?
at Telecron in Ashland
Uh-huh.
on the assembly line, making clocks.
Yeah, yeah. I guess a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yes, I loved it. It was fun.
Uh-huh. And what did Roy do as an early married man?
Roy worked at Fenwall with his dad for a while, and then he started carpentry. Him and Billy Cunningham, Robson and Cunningham, they used to build houses.
Okay. I should know that, but I guess I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Did they build many houses still
Yes,
standing?
quite a few. Curtis Road, you know where that is across?
Oh, sure.
He built most of the houses down there, 14 of the houses down there.
Oh,
And-
my. So
and-
that's Robson and Cunningham.
Cunningham, yeah.
So was the town growing a lot in that period?
It was starting to grow, yeah,
Uh-huh.
around the 50s. That's when they started building houses. They built houses in different sections of the town.
You think that was because of after the war, the build out having something to do with the soldiers coming home?
I think so, yeah. People, well, we used to get married earlier, so that, of course that meant more houses, you know.
Right.
People wanted houses. And
Yep. And what was the smallest population about that you remember for Hopkinton?
I have no idea.
Or when did you see the biggest growth?
The biggest growth probably started in the, I would say 60s, late 60s,
Uh-huh.
70s. It was really booming. They were building a lot, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And was your husband still building at that time?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And were you working or were you a mom?
I was a mom.
Uh-huh. And how many children
I had
did you have?
3 daughters, Paula, Donna, and Pamela. And one son, Jim.
Wait, I've got Paula, Donna, and Pamela,
Yeah.
and a son.
Mm-hmm.
And your son's name?
Jim. James.
Jim.
Yep.
And are they still all in?
They're all in Hopkinton.
Are they?
Except for one. Paula lives in Southborough, but
Not very far.
no. Jimmy lives next door.
Oh, that's nice.
Donna lives down the street, and Pam lives down Curtis Road.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
You have lots of grandkids who come to visit?
I have 9 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren.
And do you have like special traditions with your family, celebrations or anything special?
We used to always get together when when I lived in the house. We used to have them all there at Christmas time.
The house next door, you mean?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they all used to come there at Christmas and birthdays. And then in the summertime we'd have, of course, cookouts.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody goes their own way now, you know, so we don't get together like that anymore as much.
Right, right. I was wondering if somebody else had become the focus of everybody joining
Well,
in.
my granddaughter lives in Whitensville. My great-granddaughter lives in Whitensville. And we have a lot of gatherings over to her house. She has a big playroom that we can all fit in and everything.
Uh-huh. Well, there
So-
must be a lot of you when you all get together.
Yeah, there's quite a bit.
Uh-huh. And did you ever, you or your husband, get either directly involved, or I was going to ask you how you saw the town government change over the years and...
Well, wasn't in it too much. I was too busy with all the children, but it got a little bit more active than it was as I remember when I was a child. You know who they were and you'd wave them and see them, but I never knew too much what was going on in the
Mm-hmm.
in the planning of the town or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get into that.
Right. And just by living here, though, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen? The ones maybe you like and the ones you don't like so much?
Oh,
What are the improvements and what are
well,
the...
the improvements was the fire department.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's got a lot bigger and better with the rescue crew and all that,
Uh-huh.
which we've had used quite a bit. And the laws and stuff in Hopkinton are pretty good. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they seem to manage everything, but and just the development, there's been like developments in different parts of the town, housing, there's been a lot of that used to be woods and everything, but now it's gone. It's all
Right.
houses.
Do you miss it, or does it seem
It
like
was
a...
nice. It was nice when it was smaller. You knew everybody. You knew where everybody lived.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But now I don't know anybody.
That's how you feel. You don't know as many people,
Right,
of course.
Right. Just when you see the older people that you knew, and
Yep,
those are the only ones that you recognize anymore,
yep.
which is sad.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, you see the ones you know if you go to Kalala's, I guess.
Yeah, and you go to Colalas or you go up to the senior center,
Yes, or the library.
Yeah.
Do you make use of those buildings or the library? Or...
No, I go to the senior center sometimes.
Uh-huh.
I go on the trips and everything.
Uh-huh.
But, no, I just stay home and I
Do your knitting.
knitting.
It's gorgeous. And I was going to ask you about recreation when you were a younger person or even older with the children. Did you use the lakes like Lake Maspinock?
We used to, I went for swimming lessons over there.
Uh-huh.
When I
Did they
was a
call
kid.
Did they call it Lake Maspinock then? Did they call
Sandy,
it
we used to just call it, it
Sand-
was like Sandy Beach.
Uh-huh. I've heard it referred to as North Pond though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. North
Before they
Pond.
called it Lake Maspinock.
Yeah,
You had swimming lessons there.
yeah, yeah.
And did you have any boats or go over to Lake Whitehall?
Yes, we used to have a boat. We used to go over there and with the motor on it, and we'd fishing and riding around. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And what about the state park up here? Did you use that much?
Not too much. I've only been there 2 or 3 times. Not too much. We usually used to go up to Lake Winnipesaukee in New
Oh,
Hampshire.
nice.
Yeah, we used to camp up there. We had, when I was a kid, we used to go camping in tents up there. And then when I got married, we went tenting and we went to motorhome.
Oh, so it sounds like you had a
So
very
we've been motorhome people for a while.
yeah, nice. Sounds like you've had a very active life.
Yeah, we were always outside, doing
Uh-huh.
things outside.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And did your mom or did you, whenever throughout your life, raise any of your own, garden things and have
My
a big
dad
garden?
used to have a vegetable garden when we lived
Mhm.
up on Pleasant Street. He had a big one, I remember one time. And he always had, every year he'd have tomatoes, of course, and peppers and
Mhm.
stuff like that. My mother always had flowers.
Mhm.
She was always a flower lady.
And did you have deliveries of as a child? Oh, I don't know, bread or meat or fruit or ice or any of those
Yeah,
home
we used to have an
delivered?
ice man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to come with this ice on his shoulder up. Yeah, and we had a milkman. We had a baker come,
Uh huh.
and I think that was it.
Where did the baker come from?
Oh,
Local? Was it local? Do you think?
yeah, I forget the name of it now.
Hmm.
I don't know.
And did you ever take the bus down into or go into Framingham or?
Yes, we used to get the bus at the car barn where Kalala's is now.
Uh huh.
That was the car barn, and the bus used to park right there. We used to get on the bus. I think it was 25 cents. We go to Framingham, and we used to go to the movies for, I think it was a dime, maybe.
Uh huh.
Get the bus back.
And did your father have a car? He must have had a
Yes.
car.
Yeah, he always had a car.
So that was it pretty early,
Mhm.
right? For cars, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know if you were a child back
Yeah,
then.
he always had a Ford. He was
Uh-huh.
a Ford man.
Oh.
He always had a car. He liked his cars. He always took care of them, always polishing them and everything.
And were there local little gas stations around town? Or?
Yeah, there was Gassett Station, and then there was the Paul Kenny's up by the high school.
Yep. Did you remember a gas station or a place? I was talking to another lady called Honey Hill. Do you remember? It's where Liz Swenson's shop is now. It's across from the old Terry farm. I think he had an inspection station, but that may have been years and years ago.
I don't remember that, no. There was Irvine's. There was a gas station there too,
Uh-huh.
on Hayden Road, across from the high school.
And what kind of heat did you have? Did you have coal delivered or?
Coal, yeah. We had coal delivery.
Yep. So how did they get it in the house? Was it a chute?
Yeah, they put a chute down the window and shoot it into the cellar. Then you have to shovel it into the furnace. Yeah.
Who was the shoveler?
My father.
Your mother or your father?
No,
Your
my
father.
yeah. He did all that.
And then you had to haul the ashes away too.
Yeah. You have to lug them up the cellar stairs and throw them out back somewhere. I don't know what you do with them, but
Probably put them on the garden.
yeah, I'm
Maybe.
sure he did. Yeah, mixed it in.
More than likely.
Yeah.
Well, what else comes to mind about Hopkinton that you like the very best? What would you say your fondest memories of town are?
Oh, I think growing up as a kid and having oodles of friends, there was a lot of kids around.
Mm-hmm.
We all used to play together, and every night when we lived on Cedar Street, they'd all gather. We had a big front yard, and we'd play kick the can,
Uh-huh.
called a game we played. We used to play that every night, and then Gutso, there was kids coming from uptown, up Hayden Road. We used to come down and play. I can remember that. Oh, oodles of kids around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, and did you have a lot of freedom as a kid to go wherever you wanted? And
Yeah. You could, you could go anywhere.
yeah.
My parents used to let me take my brother to Framingham to the movies.
Uh-huh.
And no fear of anything. It was freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good memories of all that stuff.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Yeah.
Well, Marcia, if anything else comes to mind as we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
You know, I may have forgotten to ask you some things here, but I think you really have covered the waterfront of
Yeah.
your fond memories.
Just one thing I can remember when I was a kid. I remember the big fire we had uptown with the bank and the post office burnt. That's where the next to the Congregational Church.
Oh, yes.
It was in there, and I remember as a kid I sat up in bed. I lived on Cedar Street, and I could see right up, and I could watch the fire.
Oh.
I can remember that. It was a cold night, and I remember sitting up in bed and watching the fire.
Was it winter time?
Yeah.
I suppose
Yeah.
it was, and those buildings would have been wooden. Were they wood?
Yeah.
Probably.
Probably was.
And we had a volunteer fire department, so it
Yeah.
might have been hard to put out.
Yeah, and I remember going up the next day to see what happened, you know.
Sure.
And it was just like icicles hanging from the building where they froze, the water froze. And I always remember that fire, seeing that fire.
Yeah. Did they rebuild the same buildings or not?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember what they did with that.
Huh.
But
What do you remember what year? Oh, you said you were a child, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was probably in the, let me see,
Early 30s?
early 30s. Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Someone else mentioned that too.
Did they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a very
Something to look
significant
into,
significant event for town.
yeah.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much
Oh, you're
for your
welcome.
time. And
welcome.
again, this is Michael and Holmes on the 12th of June, closing out the interview with Marcia Robson, who's lived in town her whole life, as did her parents, both your mom and dad, right?
Yes.
And what was your mom's maiden name?
Anger.
Oh, that's
Angier.
seems.
Wilma Anger, her maiden name.
And where did Wilma come from?
Marlboro.
Oh, okay. I think you said that.
Yeah.
Although that might almost sound. Was it a French name? No.
French.
Yeah, it sounds French.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Very nice.